Got it. Timon, did you have anything you wanted to, anything more about open and public, or I think we're all aligned on that?
I think we are aligned, but just since we just started recording, just go back to the minutes. If you're new to this meeting and you're looking at the recording, and we're looking to broaden and open up the TST and this process on the Aether side. So I want that to be publicly known.
Yeah. And I guess we do have other TST members here. Is everyone else in agreement on this? Do we have anyone who feels like that shouldn't be our goal? Yeah, I thought I could pretty safely speak for everyone and say that we're all aligned on that point. So we have started the recording, and next up is a discussion of the new Aether deployment brigade. So that can be handed off to Andy.
Yeah, so I added a bit to the agenda here. I put down what I thought maybe was the statement of purpose for this brigade. You can read it, but it's basically focuses on, community building, number one, and improving the documentation, number two. And so, I'm hoping that this scope is pretty limited, and I think we're in agreement that at least at the beginning, we're really focusing on helping people get started with Aether in a box with real radios, and basically getting that to the point where it's really self-service, that you don't need to go on Slack and ask tons of questions in order to get that working. So yeah, the way I was thinking about this meeting is it's like, office hours with your professor, except it's with the people that understand Aether deployment. So, if you have a problem with your homework and you go to your professor, he's not going to tell you how to fix it necessarily. We're not going to debug your setup for you. But, the idea is that we'll hopefully help point you in the right direction and also understand how you got confused and maybe improve the docs so that the next person doesn't stumble on the same thing. So yeah, maybe I should stop there and see if there's any feedback about the way I've been thinking about it.
Well, I only wonder if, most people go and seek help, on Slack channels and kind of more, asynchronous and maybe quicker response. And so this is a form of synchronous feedback, but it's less frequent. So how do the two get, kind of married together?
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe like what, well, so do you have like a different goal or context for this meeting? Like, are you thinking it's like a way to synchronously help people to debug their setup?
Yeah, I don't have any specific thoughts about the meeting. I have maybe some thoughts, or I think we should talk about the overall goal, and then how to achieve the goal. And this meeting, or some form of a meeting, might be, the right path. And I think, AJ's here too, and I think he's been playing maybe one of the frontline roles of kind of engaging with community when they're getting stuck or asking questions. So, in my mind, there is some set of blockers. It's proving to be more difficult for people to deploy than we had anticipated by this point in time, and I'm happy to hear otherwise if people are feeling otherwise. Maybe I'll even pause there. Is there consensus that that's kind of an ongoing issue?
Well, we don't hear from people who are successful necessarily. We only hear from the people who have problems. So it's hard to know like what percentage of people are stumbling. Also, it seems like at least half the time, in my experience, people are kind of not exactly following the docs because maybe they have a different goal than the one that's described in the documentation. And so, yeah, I feel like the process, if you follow the documentation, the process is pretty good, although maybe there's still a couple of places that things are not clear. But it's more maybe where people are stumbling is we need to somehow figure out how to increase the scope of the documentation to cover their use case, because it's not in there and they can't figure it out by themselves.
Yeah, so good, excellent, actually. So I mean, I think the first thing for us to kind of understand is it true that when people really follow the docs that they're having success? And I guess I don't know, I'm not close enough to it, but I'm not 100% getting that impression. AJ, are you online?
Yeah, I'm there.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that you're probably on the front line more than anybody here lately. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, right. Yeah, there are a lot of issues as such I see, and whether it's in our scope or not, I won't like to debate on that. But people do find a lot of issues getting AIB with the hardware E node B or G node B up. That could be there. There are a lot more reasons for that. Like people end up in doing a lot of time installation, reinstallation, and that takes the situation into some state where we can't even debug the problem, right? So and very rarely people configure everything right in the first attempt and make it work. Most of the time they get into they realize that they have done some wrong config and they have to clean up something and again reconfig. And these are the some little bit weak links I can say, is that while doing all these things, our cluster or server goes into some weird states. So even if we have the good guide, I think that good guide works only if everything is good in first attempt. The moment we divert it in terms of change the config, redeploy, then our guides are not enough. And second set of problem is that somehow it's not clear from our documentation how things work. So if things are not working, people tend to ask us for help, right? So and most of the time their help is related to this is not working, where to look at, right? So given that we are talking about private 5G where people are not necessarily having good hold onto the 5G components, right? So they may or they should know about the typical networking or Kubernetes, but no, asking them to be aware about the lot more components of the 5G may not be a good expectation. Yeah, I mean, yeah, mostly I'm seeing the current set of problems is like the 5G related, and second is that the forwarding, UPF forwarding, it's not well documented, and I mean, and I really don't know, I mean, how to help people. Like there are so many issues, like UPF seems to be the weakest link as of today, where I'm not able to help people there. Yeah.
And you're talking about the best UPF, is that right,
Yeah,
AJ?
yeah, I think yes, Scott. Everyone is using only base UPF as of now, or at least community members. Yeah.
Yeah, if we were to try to do P4, everything would probably be an order of magnitude
Or then
harder
it
for
will,
people.
yeah, then it will be much more difficult. Yeah.
I mean, I can only speak that I followed Andy's guide and like I think I nailed it like on the first time, or with minor trouble from going off book and then realizing I should have done what Andy said. Maybe I had one false start. But yeah, I mean, I'm also someone who's more or less an expert at Ether. So I think it is good to get the feedback from people who are not experts and see where they went wrong.
At the same time, the the Ether in a box documentation can't really be a tutorial for everything that you might need to know in order to make sense of Ether. I mean, the scope is quite large there, and I feel like it needs to be kind of targeted for, like, you know, bringing up a specific use case as easy as possible.
Yeah, if we could have people, you know, start with this known thing that works, try not to deviate from it, even if you have enough knowledge to be dangerous and you know, break it, try not to deviate with it, get the basic working, and you know, then iterate on doing it your way. But maybe people are approaching it where they have constraints that are forcing them to deviate.
That's right. I think that there are some constraints when people are our default values don't work well for people. They want to change PLM and they want to change EMC values, and then that's where we start hitting the various different problems, right? So, but I think that is still something which we are able to help them. But UPF is the really problematic as of today. I mean, most of the problem comes and then they just stop there. And I don't know how, if people just say the packets are not reaching, then how do we? So if honestly, I do expect that someone who is using the Aether should have the understanding about how to debug the problems. But if they don't have that understanding, then how we are supposed to help them, right? So teaching somebody like this is how the packet flow is and these are the various probe points to check how far the packet has reached, that kind of debugging is very difficult.
So I would like to add that to the documentation. I'm not sure to what extent I know like all of the different ways to debug like the data plane and the connectivity between the eNode B and the UPF. I guess it's my intention when I find the time to make a first pass on that, and maybe some more experts can come in and fill in details. But I guess, yeah, so far I haven't had a chance to do that.
Who do we consider the experts in this, in getting the UPF up and debugging that packet flow from the eNode B all the way through to the core?
Well, whenever I had a problem, I'd send a Slack to AJ and say, you know, figure out why my UPS packets aren't flowing. So
Yeah,
AJ or Badri.
Yeah, there are two types of problem. One is like UPF is like gets configured from control plane. So if there is something wrong in the way control plane configures, then it's easy to debug. That comes in the 5G control plane domain. So we can debug that problem easily. But current set of problem, what we have is that the basic networking, like basic packet itself doesn't reach UPF. So, I mean, whatever you have configured in UPF is not even used. So IP level connectivity itself fails to receive packets from eNode B or gNode B to UPF, or from the internet to UPF, right? So the way we have designed the solution, right, the whole Mac VLAN based solution. So there are few things probably which we need to document well to explain at least within our team, so that anyone whoever is present in debugging, they can help it, because currently the expertise doesn't lie within our team, at least the SD core team.
So yeah, so I would say Hyun Soon is probably the most expert because she's the one that designed the Mac VLAN based solution for connecting the UPF to the external network.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like there are two halves. I mean, it's getting the packet from the eNode B to the UPF. I heard AJ saying that was the part of the bug. And Yun Soon is the UPF into the backbone, right? That's the Mac VLAN based side of it. Is that a correct?
It's on both sides of the UPF, from the access side and the core side.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if we can, Scott, if we can make Scott and if we can make little bit effort to get this thing understood by our team, right? then it will really help us in terms of helping other people, right? Because our team is spread in multiple time zone, and people end up in asking us, but unfortunately we become helpless, like, and we end up in spending a lot more time which is probably not required.
So we really need Hyun Soon's help then with this.
Well, yeah, I can take a first shot. I think I understand it reasonably well. And, you know, if I have any questions or doubts, I guess what I typically do is follow the documentation to bring things up and then take a look. But I'll try to distill what I understand about it into a couple of paragraphs in the documentation, and then maybe we can use that as a starting point. But I guess it is my hope in general that you know, the value of Ether in a box is you follow the directions, you get something working, you take a look and understand how the pieces fit together, and then you can figure out like what changes that you need to make in order to modify it to fit your use case. And I feel like the mistake that people make is just trying to jump all the way to their use case without going through the initial stage of getting something working, even if it's not exactly what you want.
Also, Ajay, should we bring up the point for the IMSI addition with different kind of IMSIs that we are not able to do with Rock? Like in some use cases, I think, like especially Circom based, they're trying to add IMSIs which start with 001 as the MCC, and I think since our Rock takes only integers, it's not able to take those MCs, and we kind of suggest them to go on to disable Rock and use the CMAP, which takes it as a string, and then they're able to add it. But again, yeah, this probably is a next level use case and not the basic use case that they're trying. This is also one of the issues that we saw.
So this is the leading zero problem. I thought we had fixed that, but it's still an issue.
Scott, I think if we have fixed that, then we might the impression, like the why we thought that it is not fixed, probably that is because the Rock models in the AIB still treats it as an integer. And that's the reason we just concluded that it's not going to work. But if you think that it's working, that means the Rock model needs to be updated to take it as a string, probably then.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think it's an integer, it's probably still an integer. I should take a look. I thought maybe there was something that padded it out to a certain number of digits. You know, if you told it it had to be 15 digits, it would pad it with zeros. But I would have to refresh my memory. It's been months, so.
Okay, I mean, yeah, we can take a look at it if you think that there's a logic of like sending it as a 15 digit. Then yeah, I mean, probably we can look at it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm gonna tag myself. Let's see, where do I make a comment? Myself. Yeah, it's possible our solution was just don't use ones with leading zeros. So yeah, we'll have to look and see what we did. But yeah, I mean, that is something that, you know, in an ideal world, you could ticket it back to us as a bug and we would fix it, and that would be our relationship. But unfortunately, we haven't been doing a lot of work on the Ether product lately. We still have Ether 2.1 kind of sitting around, not released yet. You know, possibly this could go into Ether 2.1, and we could have a bug fix there if this is determined to be a bug.
So I guess a couple of things here. So, you know, just bubbling this back up to where we started, you know, so I think this has been a good discussion. You know, I mean, we've highlighted a couple of hotspots where I think there's been some challenge. So Andy, back to your question about the meeting and whatnot too. You know, I guess my aspirations for this brigade are to identify hotspots like this, and then to help the community, knock them down through whatever it is, code fixes, documentation fixes, or whatnot, and to sort of keep a priority list of I guess, JIRA issues on these things. And I'm not sure, that a meeting is the answer, where people will come and bring their problems. I think that, I don't know, it's for this group to figure it out, but, I mean, this is a great discussion. This call to be able to kind of, assemble and continue to keep track of the hotspots feels like the start to me. Then we need to figure out how to resource everything. And I get that Intel's not resourcing it in a way that we can rely on sort of the XONF Intel people so we need to figure that out. And ONF is willing to resource this, wants to resource this and figure this out. And we're thinking actively about what's the best way to do that. That can be hires. We could contract some things out to GS Lab. The plan, of course, is to grow the community, and so the community can start taking a more proactive role. But until we can get community members up and running, they can't get to a point where they're going to become engaged enough to be contributing back to fix things like this. I'll pause there. Am I making sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I think, from our perspective is, if we can get it to the point where the community, we can help them help themselves, that would be great. But I think we all understand there's a little bit of a gap of where we stand right now.
Right. And I think we agree on that goal. So this TST
Yeah.
is really about helping the community, not carrying the load for the community, right?
Yeah.
And helping architecturally, and then we'll grow the TST and broaden the TST. So, I think if so we've got the, identify the hotspots and then determine how to solve them in your thing. I see you're capturing that in the notes. So I am open to, maybe it's a good topic here, or maybe not. Tell me if what people think about how do we resource this? Ideally, would we craft a job description with a certain set of skills and look for somebody who can then really, focus and work on this? Is that where we should go about this?
I mean, I think if you could hire someone, that would be ideal, and be able to task them with these specific things. I mean, that is a very particular set of skills, though, that is needed. So I don't know how easy it is to find that person.
Agreed. Well, I think that maybe one action and we should take is a job description, and if we could just get help in reviewing it, and that would be really helpful. And then, ultimately, when we have some solid candidates, if we could just get some help in interviewing as well, that would be
Yeah.
Right. If there's agreement, I think that's probably the strongest way we can put this project on track for success. The backup plan, I suppose, or the alternative plan is somebody like GS Lab or some other resource. And do we think that do we know of a resource there that would be good that we could maybe bring on faster?
Yeah, the developer we worked with, oh gosh, I've already forgotten his I think it was a meet. I mean, he could be a starting point, and would already have some familiarity with the stack, and I think they wanted to contribute. Now, whether you get the full set of skills you need out of a meet, I don't know, but like I say, he's at least familiar with the stack, knows his way around a little bit. But I would say that most of his work has been in the sort of the rock part of it, less work, on the 5 or the 4G and 5G cores themselves. But he is a person that, if you wanted to change that model from integer to string, he would be able to figure that out. I guess we would have to, well, yeah, with patch requests, then that could be dealt with.
Right.
Scott?
Yeah, Sean?
Hello? Yeah,
We hear
no,
you.
I was going to say, I think Amit was engaged by Khajiit to work on this. So I don't know what his availability would be like. But I know there seems to be an overlap between what Khajiit want and what Aether would want.
Yeah.
I think that's right. And also Khajiit's wanting to contribute back to Aether, I believe, so it all ultimately can start to create a positive feedback loop. That's my hope,
Yeah.
but we need to, I think, make some investment to help grease the wheel, maybe.
Yeah, I think the risk with GS Lab, if you get too junior a person, they're just not going to know anything, and it's going to take more investment out of Intel to train that person up than to have resolved these things ourselves. So, I mean, it really does mean finding the right person who has the right experience set, and I think Amit was a good starting point for that. But yeah, one of our issues in the past has just been people who are too junior, and I don't know that we can commit to the resources to really train someone.
Understood. Well, the job description is going to be the critical first step, and I'm not in a position to be able to write the technical requirements. Could we get a volunteer to help?
I mean, maybe a set of volunteers. I think I could help, and I think Sean could help. On the rock side of it, I don't know if maybe myself, Sean, and Andy, we could come up with this sort of a holistic jack of all trades who could do the rock work as well as do the the sort of IP networking type work. I think sort of both components are kind of in there. It's just not simply a Go programmer. It's a Go programmer with a functional understanding of, how to do those networking details.
Is that too much of a highly specialized individual? I mean, is it more appropriate as two individuals?
Yeah.
And then in terms of load, I think that we should really try to define what's needed, not put artificial constraints on it. And maybe we can, maybe we can't, resource it. If it's a team of 50 people, it's going to, right? But I'd like to understand what's needed.
And also, I mean, is it somebody with a vision for Aether, or is it somebody to maintain Aether?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I think that and both are needed ultimately. Again, to get it all in one person is asking a lot, right?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, they are actually. You need a bit of push and pull actually between the two. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it's sounding like it's two different things. One of them is a Go developer, someone who can contribute code. So also needs to be able to model in Yang. I mean, I think the type of programmer I'm thinking of, if they didn't know Yang, they could learn Yang. It would be a person who'd be capable of learning that. But then you also need, someone who is, like an Andy or a Hyun Soon person who really understands Linux networking, DevOps, CI/CD. It's not necessarily the case that the typical Go programmer knows all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So what you're looking to hire is a Scott or a Sean for this one, and then an Andy for this one. Or an Andy or a Hyun Soon. So I think Scott plus Sean to work on job description. And then down here, Andy plus Hyun Soon work on and I don't mean to exclude Hung Wei. If you want to contribute to either one of these job descriptions, Hung Wei, feel free to contribute as well.
Hey guys.
And so what about the question of kind of maintenance versus vision? Is there a third, position description we want to capture?
You're talking about like an architect of some sort?
I suppose it would be, but maybe a hands-on, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that would be a full-time kind of role. But for instance, like I don't know, like say if the subject came up of you wanted to deploy Ether, on, I don't know, some new feature or something in it, or some new environment or cloud or something like this, who takes the decision on, how these things are all put together. Probably not something that you would be doing every day. But I think you definitely need somebody with a bigger vision than maybe just a development or an ops person.
Right.
I mean, it could be that you find that either one of these other two people is sufficiently qualified that they can handle big picture as well as the detailed tasks. But yeah, if you can't find it in either one of those people, then it becomes a third person. I mean, I think back to how we tried to hire an architect at ONF, and Bill led a search for that, and we never found anyone, at least not someone who we could get on board. I mean, that becomes, I mean, part of the risk there is that becomes such a senior role that it's hard to, I mean, it's hard to attract that person. That was, I guess, that I think of that as being the one of these three roles here that is challenging.
Understood. Well, I mean, I think that, Larry is more engaged, and at that time we were really trying to, in some ways, supplement and, Larry as he was backing away.
Yeah.
And, but that's, so maybe in this architecture position, there's a cloud kind of component, cloud native-ish thinking. There's also then a 5G component, and those might be different. And they are different skills, and we're blending the two skills in Ether in this work. So
yeah.
So maybe,
so maybe, can you actually get Larry? I mean, is he available to do that part-time?
He is, and he's so I think that maybe Larry, is active and can help with the cloud side of it. And I think that maybe we should be looking at a 5G piece.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so it's more like a 5G architect or just a senior 5G mobile person.
Yeah, and there still is, like, obviously the TST as well, so if either of the two people above had proposals, I mean, they could be reviewed by the TST and the temporary architect, designer, visionary, and that's probably how you could keep the thing on track if new features are being added.
Right. For sure. I think that's right.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then, but TST, I mean, it's almost like a resource, right? So so we're kind of talking about 2 or 3 resources plus some of Larry's time, a slice of, in collaboration with the TST, that this core technical team could really be, helping to maintain Ether, make it more, easier to deploy, support deployments, and kind of knocking off these hot issues as they come up to the point where it starts to become more self-sufficient. And the goal then is to, as the community grows, more contributions be coming back in, and that would then, be the path for Ether growing into a more community sustained open source project. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Okay. So very good. So I think, getting these job descriptions written up and going really quickly will be really helpful. Hopefully it's not a ton of work. We just need a page of bullet points, really, and we'll get the searches kicked off. I think that's the thing to do. So that's really good. And that's, I think, a strategic way to address this and resource it and put us on a path towards success. Then there's maybe the shorter term tactical stuff of these, still these hotspots that we started talking about, and if there's progress we could make on those in the interim, because of course it's going to take a little while to really staff and have people up to speed.
Yeah. So,
If,
go ahead.
if we're going back to talking about like the brigade and how that should proceed. So one of my takeaways from the previous conversation was that, Timon, maybe you don't think that like having a meeting every 2 weeks is really the best way to quickly iterate on this vision of identifying the hotspots, fixing them, getting the solution into people's hands, and then getting feedback about whether it's working for them. That maybe the best way to do that is just to continue to be active on Slack, engaging people, trying to drill down into what their problem is, and then maybe also just giving a little bit more guidance to them about if they have a problem, like how can they best bring it to Slack so that they can get some resolution as quickly as possible, and maybe pointing them to a Jira board where they can also track like the status of their issue and make sure that it's getting addressed.
Right. And maybe it's implied in what you said, but it's getting sort of the the Jira in there so that we're identifying these hotspots and starting to hopefully find correlate issues. I mean hopefully a dozen people having trouble boils down to 2 or 3 core problems, and figuring out that correlation and then getting fixings or some kind of resolution path for those core problems is what we need to figure out.
So what Jira are you going to use for this?
Good question. I haven't put no thought into it.
Yeah, I mean, we have abandoned, we Intel people have abandoned use of the Aether Jira in favor of our own, and I think our own is not accessible outside of Intel. So maybe you would, I mean, I don't know if there's value in keeping the old Aether Jira around. It seems like there were development tasks that have been abandoned. They would need to be cleaned up, but maybe forking off a new ONF Jira for sort of developer support.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the Jira had been effectively, whatever, abandoned or use had ceased.
Yeah, we've stopped using the Aether Jira. And then we have created a couple Jiras. One of them is a Pronto Jira. So we have our own internal Pronto Jira.
So where is the work on the 2.1 release you were mentioning? Where is that taking place?
So I would think that would go in the Pronto Jira, but these Jiras are new to us and we have not populated issues in them. So we don't have any tasks for the 2.1 release yet. Where we are right now with 2.1, I'd say the next task is for us to take what we have now and run it through staging and get it to the point it can release. I think our feature development completed on 2.1. So next up would be new features for 2.2. Sean, does that seem accurate to you? 2.1 is done pending proving that it works and getting it released.
Yeah, I don't know about testing. I don't know if Abhilash has gone through the process of testing it.
No, I would think nobody has worked on testing or staging it.
Yeah, I mean it has. Yeah, it's kind of got deprioritized, I guess, with the migration to Intel.
Yeah, that's the thing. We're going to need considerable Intel time, from QA, and then from you and I to fix anything that broke with the new modeling. Which I don't think anything broke. I think it's in good shape, but
yeah,
we did flip the modeling on its head again, and QA will have to update all their
they'll have
tests.
some work. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a few weeks, I would say, or a couple of weeks maybe.
Yeah.
And where,
No,
and
no, no.
what GitHub is this covered in? Are these in Intel repos, or are they still in the same Aether repo?
They're no, they're in the open source repos. The ONUS project.
Okay. So there is an Intel plan to invest in the QA to get the 2.1 release out the door.
I don't know that.
It has not been discussed. You know, last I heard was we had spent a lot of time on the Pronto demo, and we were taking a break for a while and concentrating on other things. But I mean, we do have Intel goals to support Pronto. And I think supporting Pronto involves either 2.1. So it's a goal, but we have not done the internal tasking.
Scott, SD core team continues to use Aether Jira as of today.
Oh, okay. So it's still in use by you guys.
Yeah.
I should not call it abandoned then.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the SD-RAN team, but SD core team continues to use it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is good if we can have the clean Jira, which is available for open source community. Because many people keep asking us about the developer, I think from open source, they keep asking us for the open development items, and it's very difficult for us to share with them. So we need to have some Jira board which can be shared with the open source community, where they can at least view the existing open tickets, at least read only.
Is there?
Yeah, I mean, I would be happy just to see a whole new
Yeah.
Jira, because I mean, so much has changed over the years, and not just with our transition, but you know, even within the Ether project back at ONF, that there was that Jira just accumulated cruft that someone either needs to go delete a whole bunch of things that are no longer relevant, or someone should just start with a new Jira.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know, do we still have accounts on? Well, we must still have accounts because you're still using it, AJ.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just wondering if we still had accounts. Yeah, we still have all of our crowd-based stuff.
Yeah.
We just lost the Google Docs is the only thing we've actually lost. So I have another meeting that I am going to have to leave to. Well, actually, I've got 10 minutes yet. It's so I've got another up to 10 minutes that I can stay here, and then I've got to take off.
So is there somebody here that would create this Jira board, or I guess this is typically like a Zach task in the past? Is that would my understanding be correct?
Yeah, that would have been a Zach task in the past. Zach is
I mean-
training up a replacement, right?
I don't think we've hired that person yet.
Okay.
Anyone outside, have we, Timon?
We're close. We have 2 offers out that have been accepted, so I think in say 3 weeks, we should have some people,
Cool.
and some resources. These are like CI/CD people. They do not have strong networking, but they have kind of, more DevOps, CI/CD, infra kind of skills, right?
Networking is easier to learn from personal experience than the other learning good CI/CD practice. So I can take a look at making the board, but or we can talk through that. Let me take this to email, and I'll sync with you, Timon, and some other people from this side.
Okay. So I think that we create the Ether board, then we maybe try to capture these hot issues that we, the UPF and likewise in there as at least a vehicle for organizing ourselves. And then we work on the job descriptions. Those are the key takeaways that I have. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Yeah, it sounds good. And once I have a Jira board to work with, I'll add what I know about the hotspots that need documenting.
Okay. All right, and then for the TST meeting 2 weeks from now, I'm wondering about Khajiit and whether to kind of bring them in now or if it's still a little too chaotic, and then I guess the alternative I was thinking of is to just have a chance to sort of Khajiit to engage with this group, for Khajiit to really share what they're doing and what the issues that they have. Would that be of value?
Yeah, I mean, I personally have had no visibility into Khajiit so far.
Right.
So I would love to know more about them.
So we could use in this slot, or maybe that's overloading too much, and create a separate slot and just invite this group together with Khajiit. Would there be appetite in that?
Sure, I would enjoy it.
Yeah, so Eric's not here. Eric's kind of managing that relationship. And AJ
Yeah.
engaged, but I think that's something we should do, and maybe not complicate it by trying to put it in the context of a TST meeting.
Sure.
Okay, good. That's good. Takeaway. Okay. Okay. That's all I can think of for right now, especially given our time constraint.
Yeah, well, I think we got a lot sorted out here, or at least some action items to pursue. What time frame are you thinking on having the job descriptions? When do you need them? Is it sort of as soon as possible?
Well, it really is, since it's the kind of thing that just takes time, right? We need to queue it up and everything. So, I mean, if we, I believe we're just talking about a couple of bullet points and everything too. I would hope
Yeah.
it's gonna work. Just a Google Doc. You want me to start some Google Docs and you guys can then plug into?
Yeah, start them and share them with us. I think it's harder for us to start Google Docs, but easier for us to join them.
Okay, we'll do. Do that.
Yeah, and I got access to Google Docs, so I will be able to see that.
Okay, good.
Okay. So I will do that, and I will send it out to this group. And good. I think that would be really good to get that started.
And then once that gets rolling, I assume you'd like our time to help with interviews.
I would very much appreciate that. So
Okay,
we'll do all the pipeline and managing and whatnot too. And then Zach has been very helpful on the CI side, and Andrea has been helping, and some others.
Okay, good.
So if we could kind of leverage a similar model, that would be wonderful. Really.
Yeah, I would think we could spare some time.
Yeah, that would be great. That's the best way we can hire really good people. That's what will help make
Yeah.
it successful. Okay. Good.
Okay, well, I move adjourn, and those of us who have another meeting can get on to the next one in the sequence.
Right.
Thanks so much for your time, Timon. It's great catching up, and it's great seeing Aether continue to develop, and I really look forward to seeing what Khajiit is doing with it.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everyone. Good seeing everyone. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
bye.
Bye.